It's finally here! After about 2 years. But look, I gotta get this out there. This video has been stuck in my head for well over a year, and I've been actively working on it for months. So you've seen the title, you've seen how long this video is. This review is going to be extensive, and I would say it is exhaustive. There will be spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake, as well as for the first section of the original. You've been warned. Alright, let's go. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. Like, before Intermission was even announced, kind of long time. And now that I've finally played Intermission, now that I have the Platinum Trophy and have done all the things that FF7 has to offer, I feel like it's finally time to make this. And more than that, I know this video will be copyright striked into the ground because all videos with even a passing couple of notes of "Let the Battles Begin" is enough to nuke you into oblivion. But I don't really care. Even if my channel was monetized, I'd make this anyway. This game is so good. But I think instead of just gushing about all the things I like in this game, and believe me I will, I should actually have some kind of structure to this. So here's how things are going to go. We're going to talk about the base game stuff first, then the DLC stuff, then future story speculation stuff. One more time, we are going comprehensive and in-depth with the story. If you haven't played the game and care about the story, first of all, what are you even doing here? But second of all, you can skip to the combat section if you want. It's timestamped and in the description. Okay. Are you sitting quite comfortably? Then let's begin. So we start with the original did, with some establishing shots of Midgar, and then we see Aerith. But unlike in the original, she seems to spot something that we can't see and runs off. That's a bit weird, but fine. We start the game just before the bombing of Reactor 1. We get the classic train scene at the start, with resident edgelord Cloud going whoop off the side of the train, and we're thrown right in the action, baby. Cloud hits some dudes with a sword, hits some robots with a sword, hits a dog with a sword, opens a thing. Hi, Jesse. This is where the story really shines for me. The character work in this opening scene is so good. The characters are instantly likable, and we get the sense that Cloud is just some random dude tagging along with a bunch of best buds. The ultimate third wheel. And, like, they try and include him, but he's all, "I'm mysterious and edgy." Like, come on, Cloud. Open your heart. Jesse's so cute. God, I love Jesse so much. Now, the bombing of Reactor 1 was dope as hell in the original, and in the remake, it is just a masterclass in a tutorial level. The controls are kind of vomited at you in stupid screens that pause the game, but whatever. The entire thing is so intuitive to figure out that if you've ever done the video game thing before, then you'll know what to do in seconds. The enemies are squishy and don't hit hard to let you get used to the combat, and right when you're starting to get comfortable fighting one enemy, they introduce another to ramp things up. This is just game design 101 at this point, but it's always so satisfying to learn while playing what combos work best. And then BAM! The first boss is a test of all you've been figuring out, as well as a great spectacle like all bosses should be. Scorpion Boy here is a perfect first boss for this game, because not only does he force us to learn that positioning is important in this game, you know, where in the original it was all, yeah, and then pew pew, and then ow, hey, cut that out! Not very exciting. But we also have to learn to swap your active party member when it's appropriate. We'll talk more about this when we get into the nitty-gritty of the combat though. Scorpion Boy goes down! And oh fuck! The whole reactor starts blowing up. Dude, we gotta get the fuck out of here! We have a scene where we help Jessie after she gets wrecked by some rubble, and have an intense escape scene even though the timer doesn't matter. But oh well! Shinra also causes their weapons inside the reactor to go crazy and blow it up even more to make Avalanche look bad. This is what we call, in the storytelling profession, a dick move. Once we're out, we see that this definitely wasn't Avalanche's plan, and that the damage is way worse than they were expecting. There's another cute scene with Jessie where she gives us some materia, and we split off from the gang. You know, to not draw attention to that slight bit of terrorism that we just did. Cloud runs through the city until he has a spooky vision with Sephiroth? You know, the guy that Cloud definitely knows from Crisis Core, but barely shows up the entire game during the Midgar section in the original? But what's this about already killing Sephiroth? Cloud, this is the start of the game, and Sephiroth, what are you even doing here? Now, this is where things immediately don't look like the original. I'll get into this in the speculation section, but essentially everything in this scene is out of whack with the original. And it's genius, but I'll explain why later. After Cloud wakes up from his vision, we run to the train station when... Oh! Hey, Aerith! We run into Aerith, and she's being weird. It's kind of like she's being attacked by something, but we can't see it. We check and see if the crazy stranger is okay for some reason, and wait... Oh no, not you again! Sephiroth leaves pretty quick this time, but this line...
You are too weak to save anyone. Not even yourself.
Is really important. After all this, Aerith and Cloud do the original meet cute, and Aerith gives us a flower. Cloud is like, I'm a man on the run and I'm dangerous, so don't hang out with me. And Aerith is like, but I wanna. But then starts freaking out again. Wait, who are you? I don't remember you from all 3 seconds of meeting Aerith in the original. Yeah, these are a major plot device. We'll get into it, but for now, Spooky goes bad. Then, Shinra shows up, and Aerith is like, bye! More fighting, a fight with a mini-boss who's annoying because riot troopers are annoying, and finally we jump onto a train that just happens to have the rest of the team in it. That's pretty lucky. After bragging some more and scaring some people on the train, we finally get to Sector 7. Cloud has another edgy vision of rubble falling from the plate above, and then the ghosty guys show up again. Not for long, but still. On the run to 7th Heaven, Wedge complains about being hungry, which is always the height of comedy.
When I get back, it's refueling time.
Shut up! Oh, hi Tifa. I know this was like a huge deal when FF7R was first revealed, but I think Tifa looks fucking great. I think all the main characters look great. We hang out with Tifa. We talk with Barrett about money after his daughter, Marlene, screams stranger danger at us. Tifa tells us she's organized an apartment for us, rent-free. God, I wish. Tifa shows us to our new home and then guilts us into doing chores the next day. We do the usual bedtime ritual of assaulting our neighbor and go to sleep. In the morning, Tifa shows us around the slums and we do some chores and side quests. Almost none of them are interesting, but we meet a few characters we will meet again, like Marl, Weimer, and Chadley. After you do all the side quests for this chapter, you can hang out with Tifa for a bit, fixing the sink in your apartments, and then Tifa says she'll take us out to party. Hell yeah! This never happens.
Really?
We suggest one of 3 outfits for her to wear, the mature one being her signature purple dress from the original, and then we go to 7th Heaven to wait for Barrett to get the rest of the money. While we wait, Tifa makes us a cocktail. Tifa? All you did was pour 1 ingredient into a cocktail shaker and call it a day.
But you're a more discerning customer, aren't you? In which case...
Come on! All you did was shake it some more!
Our house special.
The Cosmo Canyon.
We hang out and play darts for a bit and listen to Tifa's doubts while we wait for Barrett. Barrett comes back after the Avalanche meeting, pays us the rest of the money, and tells us to leave. Fair enough, Cloud has been a bit of an asshole so far. We go back home to chill, and Jessie comes a-knockin'. She tells Cloud she wants to hire him for another job, gives him the Ifrit summon materia, and is cute some more. Then we sneak out with Jessie for a romantic motorbike. Oh god damn it! Biggs and Wedge just have to come along on our romantic motorbike ride through somewhere? It doesn't matter. This motorbike thing is pretty boring, except Jessie is cute, so it's fine.
Someone's having fun.
How can I not? Pursued by villains, a young couple thrust together by fate race through the neon street night.
Get off.
Oh, my hero!
Oh, hi, Resh. I think Roche is one of my favorite characters in the game. He's so weird and I love it. The motorbike fight is kind of weird to control. The bike turns weirdly and slowly, but oh well. It's not super long and the bike thing gets so much worse later. We find out what Jessie wants us to do. Steal her comatose dad's Shinra work ID while she's distracting her mum with Biggs and Wedge. Hey, I love stealing from the disabled. After we nab the goods, we bail back out and wait for Wedge to stop stuffing his fucking face. Here's some tragic backstory about Jessie, and carry on with her mission. Stealing weaker explosives from a Shinra warehouse. Jessie blames herself for the destruction of the Sector 1 Plate City, and thinks that weaker explosives will still blow up the reactor, but not the neighborhood, which is fair enough. So the plan is to make a bunch of noise while she goes in and steals the explosives. We go in and make some noise. Wedge gets bit on the ass by a dog. Roche tries to kill us. The fight is pretty basic. You pretty much just need to use Punisher mode counters repeatedly. It's not hard or interesting, unfortunately. And then Roche saves us from some security officers and fucks off. We nearly die again to sweepers we could very easily take on, but this time they're cutscene sweepers, so they're invincible. And then we get saved by real Avalanche. So it turns out the guys we've been working with are like too extreme for the regular old-fashioned eco-terrorists, who I guess only bomb little things. It's fine, it never really comes up again until the DLC. And even then, it's not explained much. We bail out of the warehouse when real Avalanche shows up. Jessie smacks Wedge's ass.
Your ass is fine.
Put on some parachutes and fly back down to Sector 7. Cloud gives Wedge, who did nothing useful and got hurt for it, a completely undeserved pep talk, and Biggs and Jessie say Cloud is a keeper. When we get back to the slums, Wedge shows us where everyone's houses are, even though we only never need to go to Jessie's.
Really sorry about your ass.
It's all good, bro.
And then Jessie asks us out and offers us pizza? I'm terrified of what these ingredients are, Jessie. Cloud tells Jessie he'll think about it because the other option is unspeakable.
Psych.
We then go home to bed. The next morning we wake up to Tifa yelling at us. We run and whoa, there are specters everywhere. We beat up some ghosts and run over to check on the rest of the gang. Barrett and Jessie are shooting up the blur of specters, and then Jessie falls over and hurts her ankle or something, and Barrett has to get Cloud to help with the Reactor 5 mission. At least he's quite sheepish about it. He did tell us to fuck off, after all. So off we go to the Sector 5 reactor, and predictably things go wrong. Shinra bots attack the train, we jump off, do some running up the train track, fight a crab robot who is scary to get hit by in hard mode, and then get into Reactor 5. Oh wait, there's also the underplate maintenance section with turning the lights off. Nothing interesting really happens. The moral dilemma is there. We're turning off the sunlights that illuminate the slums beneath. But apart from like one line by Tifa, we never really think about it. It doesn't feel like it's an important decision to make because Barrett was like, well, we're gonna do it anyway, so whatever. And that's just it. Plus, the fights are easy except for the last arena right before the chapter is over, which is surprisingly hard. Those damn sentry guns are so tanky. We do get our first elemental materia, and the Chocobo and Moogle summoning materia in this chapter though. Reactor 5 is another pretty significant deviation from the original. Sure, we still do the usual things, but Cloud plants the bomb, and he gets another Sephiroth flashback where we see Tifa in a cowgirl outfit and holding Masamune, Sephi's sword. And I was like, wait, why is Cloud flashing back to this? He wasn't there for this in Crisis Core. President Shinra and his head of public security, Heidegger, reveal their grand plan to take us down by publicly blaming Wutai for funding Avalanche, which is factually not true, but apparently it also is true. That's just not us. Clearly, we're not funded by Wutai because we're fucking broke. We finally make it to the top of Reactor 5 where the Airbuster is waiting for us. This is the first real challenge of the game, and especially of hard mode. During the ascent, I normally get rid of exclusively big bomber shells to stop him doing that, but sometimes I get lucky and it just tries and fails to shoot a bunch. Despite this, its tank buster laser is outrageously powerful, and it has not one, not two, but 3 phases that all have different strategies. The first is the most straightforward, but then its arms detach and fire paralyzing lasers that, if they catch you, mean big damage from the follow-up hits. These lasers are completely random and can combo you right out of the last paralysis. What a joy! The last phase is ironically much easier. The airbuster flies off into the distance, and it's all about casting spells and making sure everyone is topped off on health before it comes in to let you wail on it. We beat the airbuster, Cloud falls in a hole and has another weird vision. In this vision, someone with Cloud's voice talks to him, but we don't see their whole face, so it's not clear if it actually is Cloud. Is it? I mean, yeah, it's his voice, but there's something about him that's odd. Cloud wakes up in the church and reunites with Aerith. We get a hilarious close-up of a low poly flower. Wait, hang on, I need to talk about this. The square. Listen to me. Why would you zoom in on that if it looks so bad? This isn't the only time in the game this happens, by the way. Anyway, a guy Aerith knows called Reno shows up. He's a Turk, kind of like Shinra's Secret Service or Black Ops division. Reno asks Aerith to go with him, she says no, and naturally we fight. Reno is really tough. He has long combos that, if they catch you, can do a hefty amount of damage, and some unblockable things that require a special dodge to counter that I've never been able to get. In second phase, he throws EM mines that paralyze you so he can get a big hit in. Not to mention, you're just playing as Cloud here, with no support. If Reno feels like it, he can be insanely aggressive and give you no chances to recover from the beating you take. After Reno gets sat the fuck down, more specters show up to murder us. Oh wait, they're helping us? Neat. Monkey bars. Monkey bars. We get out of dodge, and then have a cute walking section where Aerith and Cloud have some banter. And this is where I realized that I love Aerith in this game. In the original, she was really boring, just like all the women Nomura writes, really. Aerith is amazing in this game, and Brianna White kills it as Aerith's voice actress. She brings so much charm to Aerith that is just non-existent in the original.
Shit.
Aerith's combat is fine. I feel like she doesn't get to show her true potential, especially in hard mode where casting is pretty much prohibited. Anyway, back to the story. After we get out of the rubbish tip, we get to the Sector 5 station and we see Scarlet, and damn son, those bobbies! Nothing much happens, but it's nice to meet a new villain. We get to the Sector 5 slums and Aerith, why is your house fucking enormous compared to the tiny pieces of shit everyone else lives in? Aerith is the 1%. We pick some flowers, and then we get told that we need to go save some kids. Cloud goes boing, kids get saved.
That was cool.
And then we run into someone who looks very much like Cloud's neighbor in Sector 7. He has a different number tattooed on his arm, but just like with his neighbor, Cloud has another freaky vision of Sephiroth. Sephiroth starts talking about something called the Reunion. Players of the original game will know what the Reunion is, but this game is so weird and it treats things so differently that I feel like the Reunion is something else here. After Freaky Cloaked Guy strolls off, we talk to Oates, and then we do some side quests. There's a chain of side quests leading up to a fight with the Toad King that unlocks the best minigame in the entire game. Fucking Whack-a-Box. Whack-a-Box is really annoying. Without knowing optimal combos, you can be stuck grinding it for hours to try and get the highest tier rewards. It does teach you how to deal damage quickly, but that's by necessity. You need to preserve your sanity somehow. After the side quests are done, Aerith says it's nice to help people, Cloud says sure whatever, and then we head off back to Aerith's house. Here we meet another Turk, Rude. Just like with Reno, Aerith and Rude clearly know each other, and Rude asks Aerith to go with him. Obviously, she says no, and we fight. Rude is awesome, but also kind of annoying. He's hard to counter, is super quick, and can put you to sleep. He doesn't really have a second phase. Instead, he just ramps up his aggression. Since he focuses down the active character, and because he's really fast, it can be very difficult to find an opening to do damage. The best strategy I found was punishing him with another character while he gets locked in an animation, since he can't change target mid-combo. He hurts, so make sure you hurt him back. He's super badass, but also a cheap bastard. I do love him. We beat up Rude and go back to Aerith's. Aerith talks to some flowers, and oh my god, it happened again! And then Aerith's mum tells us to fuck off while Aerith is washing up for dinner. So we have to... Wait, hang on. Hi, Aerith. So we have to... Fuck! Hi, Aerith!
You jerk.
So we have to sneak out of Aerith's house that inexplicably has a whole bunch of just shit on the floor now? What happened in the 3 seconds after Cloud went to bed? We sneak out and Elmira tells us not to date her daughter ever again. That's not a problem. My heart belongs to Jessie. Cloud bails from Sector 5 and is 3 steps towards Sector 7 when Aerith instant transmissions in front of us and says, "Oh no, you sexy hard-to-get twink, I'm not bored of you yet." And then leads us through the stupidest, most boring area in the game. But just listen to this music! There's also some good materia in here, but the whole zone in hard mode is just get through it as quick as possible because, oh man, you have to play through this area a lot for the platinum. We meet up with the thieves, Burke, Beck, and Butch, who are pretty funny, but wow, they overstayed their welcome.
Okay, guys, whatever you do. I'm dead. I'm super dead.
Shit! Let's get the hell out of here!
Finally, after many crane puzzles, we are free from the expressway.
Cloud, up top.
Aerith and Cloud hang out in the playground and talk about Aerith's first boyfriend. We don't actually hear his name because Cloud has another flashback, but we can read her lips to know who it is. Zack! Pretty cool that we get some Crisis Core references in this game. Oh, hi oh damn, Tifa, you look good. Cloud and Aerith find out Tifa has been selected as a candidate to become Don Corneo's new wife. And we all know where this is going. The best part of the entire game is right here, the infamous Wall Market section. We ask around about how we can enter Aerith as a candidate. Madam M says that Aerith can be her entry, and then we get the best scene in the game.
This exclusive treatment is reserved for our most well-to-do patrons. First, the hand cream. A generous coating for each and every one of your richly deserving fingers. Let's start with the tips. That's it. Relax. I'm only here to help. Oh, did that hurt?
No.
Then I'll move on to the base. of the fingers. Let's see if we can't improve your circulation. Get that blood flowing. No, don't fight it. Stress is poison to the body. And finally, some gentle stimulation for the palm. No more than a touch. Just like this. Oh, what was that? A cry of pleasure? Is this how you like it? How about this? Or maybe this?
Madam M says that Aerith will need an extremely expensive makeover to become a candidate. Aerith asks us if her outfit is okay, and in our post-nut stupor, we have these three options. The last one is the best because I guess the nut was so strong that it killed Cloud's grammar.
No matter what I think.
Well, I think it's pretty cool.
And so we enter a tournament for the cash to get Aerith's new dress. The look of Aerith's dress depends on how many quests you do in Sector 5, by the way. The tournament's pretty easy, mowing through dudes. Oh god damn it, not you guys again. Winning our way to the top, and then higher Heck House. See, normal mode Hell House isn't so bad. Hard mode Hell House is the cheapest motherfucker in the West. Look at this! The asshole spawns fucking tonberries and cutters! What the fuck? So we beat Heck House and make sure to do the other Coliseum stuff to unlock Cloud's, but more importantly Aerith's new limit break before Madam M whisks her off to get changed and made up. While this is happening, we run off and do some side quests, either for Madam M or Chocobo Sam. But because I always pick the luxury massage, I always do Madam M's. Nothing interesting happens except for homoerotic squats and beating up Beck's badasses again. That's 3 times in one chapter. We do everything and then head back to Madam M's to find Johnny telling us that Aerith is at the Dons already. So we go there, and then Aerith isn't there, but then she's behind us? What just happened? Also, wow, Aerith, you look great! But it turns out Aerith has been plotting behind the scenes to give us the second best scene in the game.
That's nice.
Smooth! I love it!
Cloud gets made up to look like a girl as Andrea Rodea's candidate. We get a really nice speech from Andrea, reassuring Cloud that beauty is genderless. Stepping outside the humor for a sec, I really like the sentiment of this speech, and I can guarantee that Nomura didn't write it, but we will get there. Aerith and Cloud, triumphantly and with no embarrassment whatsoever, march up to the Don's house as candidates to be his new wife. And finally, after all the misadventures Cloud and Aerith have been through, we finally find Tifa. And the reaction is what you'd expect.
Cloud? Is that you? Oh my god, that makeup and that dress!
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
Cloud is surprisingly chill about the comments, which is gratifying. He looks good. Work it, Cloud. So good, in fact, that he's chosen to be Don Cornet's new wife. And Tifa and Aerith are sent away to be, well, there's no way to say this nicely, or in a way that meets YouTube's terms of service. But it's okay, because even though it is disgusting and deeply uncomfortable, Tifa and Aerith beat the shit out of Corneo's thugs and get their gear back from this guy Leslie, who's suddenly good now, even though he was kind of complicit in this whole thing. We do see his tragic backstory, but whatever, it doesn't matter to the overall plot probably. While this is all happening, we also get some very creepy stuff, but with Cloud and Don Corneo. Refreshing! Finally, after an unbearable amount of time, and threats to pummel his balls into pancakes, the creepy ends, and Don Corneo gives up the information that Shinra is going to blow up the pillar holding the Sector 7 plate above the slums and destroy Avalanche. And then we fall down into a hole into the sewers. Because every goddamn game has to have a sewer level. This is where the final choice for a cutscene that happens later in the game happens. You can choose to either help up Tifa or Aerith. Both of them doubt whether what Don Corneo said is true. And then we get attacked by Abzu. This first iteration of Abzu is not as interesting as the next, but it's fun enough. He's super weak to fire, so giving either Cloud or Tifa the elemental materia really helps this fight a lot. Nothing happens in the sewer level except for some cute character moments between Aerith and Tifa, which is great! In the original, there was almost no interaction that was not jealousy of each other being close to Cloud, because I'm pretty sure that Nomura didn't know what a woman is. But in the remake, we get some really nice building of a dynamic between Tifa and Aerith. Tifa is freaking because her home is about to be destroyed, and Aerith, being her lovely self, is doing her best to reassure her. And they very quickly become friends as a result, which is great to see. Good job, game! The sewer level is entirely useless and way too long. And oh my god, don't even get me started on the Blue Goose and Sahagins. Getting hit by the curse and turning into toads is just painful, especially on hard mode where you can't use items and so there is no cure for that. Honestly, I just speed through this level every time. After we do a dumb puzzle, we enter the train graveyard level. This level is also nothing, but it's nice to see that Aerith and Tifa's attachment to Cloud is not even close to jealous in this game. Even though their relationships are implied, if not outright stated, to be at least a little romantic, I really like that Tifa and Aerith's friendship is at the forefront here. They're friends first, and their connection to Cloud doesn't hinder that. It's lovely. Ghosts drop a train right on the gang, and they have to go the long way around. And I just need to stop right here to bitch, because this right here is so annoying. And now I have to get into this, because this is just so indicative of how Nomura writes women. Tifa is literally capable of punching machines to death, is by far the most agile of the team, and yet Cloud has to save her from this? Nomura goes to such lengths to make Cloud seem cool at the expense of common sense and all the information we know about the women in his stories. At least saving Aerith makes sense because she's physically not that strong, but Tifa? The literal martial arts expert come on! The train graveyard section doesn't really have much plot relevant stuff either, except maybe the moment where Aerith has a vision of herself as a child. This is going to come up later, but I don't know how. The bosses in this section aren't great either, but damn, Ghoul's boss theme is fucking incredible. The Elagor fight is also just okay. The flying bits are boring because you have to switch to Aerith, but you can't even use her cool skills because he moves around too much. Pew pew! But then we finally get back in the swing of the game. This next level, the counter-attack against Shinra trying to blow up the tower, is the most emotionally affecting level of the game. I can't even make jokes about it. Oh, fuck off, Wedge, you would fall off the stairs, wouldn't you? But the gang is all here for about 3 seconds because Tifa is stuck looking after Wedge and Aerith goes off to find Marlene. Aerith and Marlene have a cute scene and then a helicopter shows up outside 7th Heaven. Oh no. In Wedge's defense, he does have a bit of a moment here where he's actually useful. He stands up to some Shinra guards and leads the evacuation of people fleeing the imminent destruction of Sector 7. He admits how useless he's been, which is a good first step to acceptance, and then actually does something good for a change. Up the pillar. For the first time since the fight with Reno, we have Cloud on his own, and it is brutal. It's crazy how used to having a full party you get, but I consistently get destroyed by the fights here. While Cloud continues to ascend, we get lots of cutscenes showing Avalanche really getting hammered, with lots of generic guys getting shot, but also Biggs. Biggs has a manly man talk with Cloud, who is now fully on board with the cause, and I am so glad it took this long to get here. He's had time to get invested, and to make friends with the members of Avalanche, and now he watches Biggs die, and Tifa catches up to him, and then... yes, he watches Jesse die.
You owe me a pizza.
And this part is heartbreaking every time. But this is the personal motivation for Cloud. His friends have died, and now he's here to kick some Shinra ass. We ascend the rest of the tower, catch up with Barrett, and then have one of the best fights in the game. A fight with both Rude and Reno. The first phase isn't as good because Rude is flying in a helicopter shooting at you, and shooting flying targets is not very fun. Yet.
Stubborn little shitbirds, ain't you?
But the second phase is incredible. All you've learned in the Reno and Rude solo fights applies here, as well as some new things. It's absolutely brilliant. After the gang beats our lovable bastard Turks, Rude does the bad thing and sets the pillar to explode. Quick question. Why does the pillar have a self-destruct sequence? That's a weird thing to have in something that should absolutely, without doubt, be very permanent. We learn here that Aerith negotiated with Big Boss Turk Tsung to save Marlene in exchange for Aerith's cooperation. So Aerith is gone, and now Cloud has even more motivation to fuck up Shinra. And to top it all off, the pillar blows up as we zipline away. The next chapter deals with the aftermath of the plate dropping so much better than the original. It looks downright apocalyptic. Fire and rubble everywhere, screams of people looking for survivors, the works. It's a nightmare, and it's so well done. Not only that, but the characters' reactions are so believable too. Just a mix of shock, horror, and disbelief. Cloud has a feeling that Aerith took Marlene to her house in Sector 5, so we go check it out. On the way, Sephiroth half gloats half kind of implies that this will make Cloud stronger. I don't really know why he wants Cloud to get stronger here. Cloud's already killed Sephiroth once, so him being strong must figure into Sephiroth's 5D chess plan. The gang makes it to Aerith's house, and Elmira ensures Barrett that Marlene is safe. Then we get a huge exposition dump, where Elmira explains that Aerith's birth mother died after escaping Shinra, and she adopted Aerith as her own. Now we see for absolute certain that Aerith is part ancient, and can see the future? And this throws everything that we've heard from Aerith so far into question. If Aerith can see the future, how much of what she says can we trust? And how much is just going through the motions? We head back to Sector 7 through the awful crane tunnel to look for other survivors. Eventually we stumble upon one of Wedge's cats that leads us to a hole in the ground, where we find a tunnel where the floor collapses and the gang gets separated. Here we control Barrett as the main character for a while, and it's pretty fun. When he's not shooting annoying things from really far away, Barrett is really great to play. Plus, we have the hilarious addition of shooting through destructible walls, which is something that makes literally no sense, but it's fun, so whatever. The fights with Barrett on his own are tricky too, especially with the dogs. Dogs in this game are no joke, but since Barrett's damage output isn't great, it's hard to race them down before you get throat clamped into oblivion. Eventually we run into Tifa, who together we find Wedge at the edge of a strange kind of warehouse looking thing with some weird purple monsters. The doors of the warehouse close and more monsters pour out of the walls. They're squishy and they don't hit hard, but man are there a lot of them. And then the big one comes out. He can be a pretty hard fight at first, but focusing on his breakable parts gets him down. After the fight's over, Cloud shows up to deal the final blow. And then we shoot a hole in the wall that reveals that these monsters were probably, very likely, once people, mutated by Shinra experiments. Fantastic. We get back to ground level with Wedge conveniently unconscious until we need him in Chapter 17. And then Tifa and Cloud have to break the news to Barrett that Jesse and Biggs died on the pillar. The team goes to sleep, but Cloud sees someone in the garden where he and Aerith had that first conversation with the flowers. This is where the game really starts changing. My first playthrough, I got Aerith and had no idea that the other cutscenes existed. After playing through all three, those being Aerith, Tifa, and Barrett, I think I like Tifa's the most. It definitely feels the most human to me. Tifa is, understandably, emotionally destroyed, and she's mourning her home. And Cloud fucking finally has a human reaction and actually empathizes with her. He even hugs her. It's great. One of the best cutscenes in the game, in my opinion. Barrett's is definitely the weakest. I know he's invested in the people that he talks about, but I'm not. I have no idea who these people are, Barrett. This whole conversation just reeks of overcool masculinity. It's like flexing your muscles, but with words. Just let men be vulnerable, damn it! But the one that makes the most sense in the story is Aerith. And it's here where we start to really catch on that Aerith knows a lot more than she says. First of all, she's able to force project to us in the first place. Even Cloud asks how it's possible, and she's just like, I don't know, you tell me. And it's like, no? You tell me, Aerith, you're the one who's doing it. Aerith tells Cloud that she has treasured the time they had together, but tells him that he can't fall in love with her. Bit presumptuous, Aerith. The coming chapter is filled with side quests. Like seriously, there's 9, and none of them are short. But they are linked together, so if you do one side quest, you usually have done something to progress another. It's a nice touch. It also feels nice to help all the people that you've met, like Weimer and Marl, in helping the community recover from the plate dropping. After all of that is done, after Tifa has done pull-ups with the boys, and we've been to the Coliseum to unlock Tifa and Barrett's new limit breaks, we have a stupid section with Leslie who loses his stupid necklace from his fucking fiance or whatever, It's long, the fight with the mischievous Shot is annoying, and the last side quest bit to get Don Corneo's treasure has you face to face with the Sahagin Prince, which is as fun as it sounds. But this leads to another confrontation with Don Corneo, who predictably runs away, and Abzu comes back for round 2. This version of the fight is much more entertaining because, oh man, can you charge ATB quick off the shots in the arena. You can basically fire off skills at will, and Abzu has a brutal temper to match. The fight is hectic, and it's really fun. After we've done all the side quests in the game, at long last, we get our second elemental materia, courtesy of the Angel of the Slums. Having done all we can for the people of Sector 7, we head over the wall of Wall Market back to the ruins left behind. Not much happens yet. We get some beautiful but very sad vistas. Everyone says how sad they are and how they're going to get Aerith back, and then there's an easy boss fight with the Valkyrie. After scaling the ruins of Sector 7, the gang finally make it up to the Shinra building. Monkey bars. But Tifa this time. After making our way inside, we have 2 ways to get up to the top of the Shinra building. The elevator and the stairs. One is quick and has a bunch of short fights, the other is amazing. Taking the stairs is by far the funniest part of the game. I thought it'd be long and boring like in the original, but the dialogue that happens here, in just the entire section, is so good.
Guess these labs and shit are all the way at the very top.
Yep, the very top.
That's good to know. But tell me, these stairs, are these stairs ever gonna end?
I don't know. Ask the stairs.
I don't think the stairs are talking.
Well, duh. Duh. Worst route ever. Give me a suicidal last stand. At least that'd have it in. This sucks. I want to go back.
You want to go down all those stairs you just climbed?
Finally, at the 63rd floor, we take a tour of the Shinra building, which includes a propaganda museum that is in various stages of completion. It's a bit boring, but the whole tour does a great job of showcasing just how uncontested the stranglehold Shinra has on Midgar is. We probably get the best looking FMV in the base game here, and then everything starts to go wrong. The world is blowing up and Sephiroth shows up and shanks Tifa and Barret. It's all in VR, so we're not too worried, but it's clear that this is the outcome of the meteor that Sephiroth summons in the original. Around this time, a guy called Palmer, who we've never met before, sees someone in the hallway and is freaked out. I wonder who it could be. We snap out of the VR movie and we make our way to the lounge, where we are stopped by this guy, who says for us to follow him. He takes us into quite a nice library, where we meet Mayor Domino. Thankfully, we don't have to do the stupid quiz to get elemental materia that I always get wrong in the original. Some more goofiness, and buying by far Barrett's best gun later, we head out to the staff lounge to find a Mayor Loyalist who will give us a key to the higher floors. But first, we need to do a battle sim to prove ourselves, because of course we do. The battle sim he gets us to do is easy. The other sims are some of the hardest fights in the game. After finishing the collaborators trial and heading upstairs, we run into not only the president of Shinra, but also Heidegger. As tempting as it would be to blast them full of holes, we've got more important things to do. So, we hide in the men's toilets and do a brief crawling section through the vents before eavesdropping on the board meeting to find where Aerith is. After we find out Hojo's horrible plans for Aerith, we follow him to his lab for a confrontation. This whole time, Hojo has just been muttering to himself about essentially making a child of Aerith and Sephiroth, which is just... okay. What the fuck? Once was pretty creepy, but this is the second word I'm not allowed to say on YouTube implication in this game. And I've just got to step in here. We can have a gritty world without either explicit or implicit in it. It's not necessary for the storytelling, and it just makes me so angry. It doesn't need to be here. It will never come up again. Or at least I hope to God it doesn't. So why? Okay, back to the story. I'm so mad. Hojo sticks a monster on us. Some big crabby / octopus boy that shoots poison and lasers. Not so bad. Then we find Aerith. Hojo's plans are not happening under my watch, and the gang cleans up the armored soldiers who are so annoying before setting Aerith free. And this is where we meet Red 13, who is like Charmander but a cat. I wonder if he's really like Charmander and you can put his tail out and he'd die. Red runs after Hojo and tries to kill him. It doesn't work. After we get the reveal that Red 13 can speak, Cloud has another vision of Sephiroth, as well as of a freaky thing in a jar. Cloud manages to make it to the elevator, but passes out. And then we get a nice little scene of the Turks talking about what happened in Sector 7. I really like this scene, of them trying to justify to themselves the part they played in killing thousands of people. It makes them seem a bit more human. Still very much horrible monsters, but it's more than we get in the original.
Yeah, nope.
Cloud wakes up in Aerith's old room in the Shinra building. After Aerith explains that she is a Cetra, what Shinra calls an ancient, the spooky ghosts show up again, but once again, they're not aggressive, and Red explains that they're called Whispers, the arbiters of fate. Essentially, they exist to push events in certain directions when things veer too far off fate's proper course. This is incredibly important information. Domino and Wedge show up on the TV in Aerith's room to tell the gang that Avalanche, the legit Avalanche instead of the Splinter Cell we know and love, are attacking the Shinra building and have set up evac on the roof. The gang bails, trying to head upwards. On the way there, they pass through Hojo's secret lab where he's keeping something. Oh no. That's the thing from the vision Cloud just had. Genova. Hi, Sephiroth. And he's the real deal this time. Cloud tries to attack him, but Sephiroth slices clean through the walkway everyone is standing on and sends them tumbling down into the depths of Hojo's lab called the Drum. Nothing much happens in the Drum, really. Hojo is annoying. Xenonese are annoying. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sledgeworms are the cheapest enemies in the damn game. Swordipede is cool, though. I do have to gush again how much I like Aerith and Tifa's dynamic. In addition to the love I have for their character interactions, the synergy of Tifa's close combat style with Aerith pinging the enemies from the back is really great. Plus, Tifa is so squishy she needs the support to keep her alive. Oh, I forgot the Brain Pod boss. It's easy. Just triple slash it and maximum fury it until it dies. Next. When we finally make our way back to where we were before Sephiroth dropped us down a hole, we see that there's lots of glowing purple blood on the floor and there's ominous music. Very reassuring. Following the blood trail, we eventually reach President Shinra's fancy smancy office. And so much shit happens here, it's actually insane. For some reason, President Shinra is dangling off the edge of the building and is saved by Barrett, who tells him to exonerate Avalanche, which is pretty fair, to be honest. They were never responsible for the ruin of Sector 8 or 7. Okay, so they definitely blew up those Marco reactors, but who doesn't engage in a little eco-terrorism every now and then? I know I do. But then President Shinra pulls a golden gun on Barrett, all according to Keikaku. He mocks Barrett for being concerned with revenge and his reputation, when his cause was to save the planet originally. Standard evil bad guy gloating, but then BAM! Sephiroth guts the motherfucker, And then when Barrett tries to shoot him, Barrett gets shanked too. Like, what? And then Jenova shows up. What the fuck? I don't want tentacles. Jenova is annoying as hell. She's invincible as long as she's got tentacles out. She can cast stop. She has some seriously nasty damage if she catches you. But at least she's kind of squishy compared to a lot of bosses. Once her tentacles are gone, she goes down pretty quick. And also, her music is a jam. After Jenova is beaten, Cloud runs to chase after Sephiroth while the others stay with Barrett. Then, one of the Whispers flying around resurrects him. Nice! Anyway, this part is like the boss rush of the game now. There are so many bosses, one after the other. First, Cloud fights Rufus Shinra, the son of President Shinra. And I think Rufus might be one of my favorite fights in the game. He forces you to play by his rules, and is an absolute cheating bastard sometimes. Don't combo too hard, he punishes that. Don't stand still, he punishes that. Focus on Darkstar, and he will punish that, but you kinda have to. If you can beat down Darkstar quick enough, then the fight is much easier. After Cloud wins, Rufus escapes on the Turk's helicopter and shoots Cloud, causing him to fall to his death. Nah, I'm just kidding. Actually, Tifa catches him and they have a moment. It's nice. While this is happening, Aerith and Barrett are going down the elevator to get out of Dodge, and then... oh no. Meet the Arsenal. He's big. Before we get to that fight, in a cutscene, Wedge, I assume, gets pushed out a window? It's not clear. But if so, nice. The Arsenal is also one of my favorite fights in the game because it actually makes playing at range really fun. Being forced to think about the positioning of both your characters at once is such a great idea. It kind of makes the game feel like a cover shooter for a while. The fight utilizes all of the abilities you've been using so far too. If you've been grinding proficiency with all the weapons, and you should have them all by this stage, this fight is so much more fun. It's a brilliant reward to have a fight made even better by doing extra things in the game. After the fight with the Arsenal, Aerith, Red, and Barrett make it to the ground floor, only to be surrounded by Heidegger and his boys. Right when Barrett and Red are about to be shot, we get the most hilarious scene with Cloud on a bike. I mean, seriously, look at this. The gang makes their escape down the highway. There's some more motorbike fighting where we fight other guys on bikes, and then a helicopter, and then this thing. It's really annoying. And the camera makes it so much worse. If I could just have the camera pointing forward so that I could see where I was driving, this fight would be so much better. Oh well, it's not a huge deal, it just bothers me. The team gets to some toll gate, and understandably, Cloud doesn't want to pay tolls to Sephiroth, so he gets off his bike. This is the start of the end of the game. Just 2 more fights here. Sephiroth uses Masamune to slice a hole in dimensions and disappears, leaving the gate behind. Aerith does something and turns the creepy dark portal into a nice bright portal. I have no idea what this does, because we still end up fighting Sephiroth. Before we find Sephiroth, we fight the Whisper Harbinger. This fight has a lot of phases, starting with fighting Whisper Rubrum, Verity, and Crocio, who are based on the children of Jenova and Advent Children, by the way. Who knows if there's a canonical reason why. After some fighting, the party gets separated into Cloud and Barrett, who take on Rubrum and Verity, and Tifa and Aerith, who take on Crocio. Then Barrett and Red break off to shoot at the Harbinger itself, while Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith fight the regenerated Whispers. The Whispers start losing, they fuse together to form fucking Bahamut, who is just ridiculous. Oh my god, he hits so hard. As each whisper dies though, we get flashes of some apocalypse happening. People who've played the original game would recognize this, but why is the Harbinger showing it to us? Oh boy, I can't wait to tell you. After Bahamut is down, that's pretty much it. We beat on the Harbinger's face for a sec and then it dies. This is an incredibly important event that changes everything. Okay man, I have no idea why the FMV models for the main team are so bad. It's just bizarre. Barrett looks okay, but everyone else looks awful, especially their teeth. They look so small, it's horrifying. Anyway, back on track. Sephiroth seems to absorb the power of the Harbinger, and then throws a building at us while Cloud does some anime dodges. And finally, we fight Sephiroth. And he is absolutely not that bad. That's only now that I know the fight though. My first playthrough, I only just managed to scrape by with a win first try. Same with hard mode. He is the combat perfected, and he will not hesitate to destroy you. First, you start off with only Cloud, who is pretty universally the most versatile punching bag. He's how you learn the fight. When some fraction of Sephiroth's health is gone, another party member joins. Depending on your choices in the game, it could be Barrett, Tifa, or Aerith. I have literally never had Barrett show up until this playthrough where I got the footage. I used to think the only way that you could was to get his resolution cutscene, but now I think it's probably just random and I was just unlucky. A bit more health and the next party member shows up. All the while, Sephiroth is just unleashing hell on you. Octoslash, Aeolian Onslaught, magic, the works. He will throw everything at you. He focuses down the main character at all times, making taking direct control of characters really risky. In this fight, it was terrifying to take control of Aerith, since she is so squishy and he just melts her. Cloud should be your active character pretty much all the time, since he can counter the sword swipes with a combo of Punish Counter and Counter Stance. When Sephiroth finally goes down, we get a cool action scene of Sephiroth throwing whispers at us, and then Cloud jumps up and swings his sword at Sephiroth, and the one-winged angel finishes playing in the best climax scene in recent memory. Cloud and Sephiroth appear at what Sephiroth explains is the edge of creation, and Sephiroth says some cryptic shit before disappearing.
7 seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see.
What does that even mean? Then the gang reappears outside Midgar. Everyone is confused. Cloud goes, "I have to kill Sephiroth." And then Aerith says this.
I miss it. The steel sky.
Aerith, it's been 10 minutes. And the game is over. All in all, the story is really great. It sets up our characters, builds their dynamics, and really gives us a reason to leave Midgar at all. It's very padded, especially in the side quests and the pointless levels, but at least for me, it's very easy to get emotionally invested in these characters. We'll talk more about the implications of this story, especially the climax, in the speculation section, but for now, let's talk about the combat. I would go so far as to say that the combat in FF7R is among my favourite in any game, and I do include Bloodborne in that list. It's the perfect blend of the original game's ATB system and a modern action RPG. The basic attacks are impactful for each character, and each one serves a different role in your party, so you end up missing the party member you're not playing. That being said, playing as all four would be clunky, so I'm kinda glad that we can't. The game emphasizes dodging and blocking in the combat as opposed to tanking damage and healing like in the original, and while you're constantly getting slammed for damage, there's very little in the game that's actually frustrating in terms of the combat. Even though it can get really hard, it feels like there is a system in place, and when you lose, it's your fault. That's a bit of a double-edged sword with accessibility in mind, but for me, as a glutton for punishment, I really enjoy being forced to play by a game's rules. Make me use your combat the way I'm supposed to, Daddy. I like it hard. The ATB abilities are where the game really comes alive though. FF7R turns from a passable combat system to a completely fucking brilliant one. The implementation of ATB in the new combat is genius, and it's going to take me a while to explain why. The first and most obvious is that ATB encourages aggressive play. If you know me, then you know I love being in my opponent's face and smacking them. ATB charges way faster if you're hitting your opponent, and so if you want to let your coolest abilities rip as much as possible, you need to use your normal attacks. It pays to keep moving and find combos that charge ATB fast. And each character has combos that work best either for stacking stagger or just straight DPS. So using your full arsenal of abilities is to your benefit to really let loose with the combat. The next big difference with ATB is learning weapon skills by proficiency. Through the game you'll pick up plenty of new weapons, and by landing the weapon's ATB ability multiple times in battle, you can use it with other weapons. So it benefits you to switch weapons a lot in your first playthrough. Learn the skills, then go back and pick your weapon for your build. For Cloud, for example, after you max proficiency with all weapons, you might go Buster Sword for an even spread of magic and physical damage, or Hard Edge for raw smack and power. Every character has a clear couple of best build weapons after all proficiencies are maxed, but all weapons have great abilities. So even if you don't care about trophies, it pays to get proficient in every weapon. I briefly mentioned stagger, but it's also how to break the combat entirely. When you fill the pressure gauge underneath the enemy's health, then the enemies become staggered. Stagger is a state where the enemy suddenly says,
"I've fallen, and I can't get up!"
and you get a huge window to wail on them with a bonus to your damage. Some of the weapon abilities I mentioned just before are specifically to build the pressure gauge, so for most of the mobs in the game, using those abilities trivializes fights completely. It's a great reward for investing time in learning weapon abilities. Let's get into specific characters, starting with Cloud. Cloud is our main DPS of the party. He's got a good balance of magic and physical damage output, and is decently quick when running. His rolls are also pretty much right in the middle of the distances covered. Good for evasions, but not amazing. His combat quirk is that he's got two main stances for his normal attacks, Operator and Punisher stance. Operator is more mobile and can move around much faster and has a fantastic closing in move as the first attack of his Operator combo. Punisher mode is much slower for mobility, but much higher in damage output. Cloud also has two inbuilt parry methods, switching to Punisher mode at the right time, holding the guard button while in Punisher mode, and the ATB ability Counter Stance. You take significantly reduced damage and smash back at the opponent for huge pressure damage. One of my favorite combos for him is full Operator combo, switch into Punisher for a full combo, and by then you should have at least one ATB. So let rip a focus thrust for pressure buildup, or go for Braver for big damage. Braver does have a much longer wind up time though, so mostly I just go for focus thrust. His other abilities are kinda situational, especially Disorder. If you want to switch stance, it makes more sense in my mind to either just hit triangle, or to switch from Punisher to Operator, just roll. If an enemy backs out of a Punisher combo, then roll and close distance with Operator. Cloud focuses on normal attacks much more than the other party members, but his ATB abilities keep his combos going for constant damage. One big brain play I'm sure others have figured out is to counter with Punisher, and even if you have no ATB at the start of that, he'll gain an entire bar. Right after this goes off, use Counter Stance to counter the next hit, then block for another Punisher counter. You can rinse and repeat this combo for as long as the enemy's combo lasts, and it deals disgusting pressure damage. Next up is Barret. Barret is our ranged support, honestly. His normal attack DPS is pretty low, and Overcharge can put out some good damage, but is more used as an ATB boost really. He's ridiculously slow at running, and his rolls are garbage, but it really doesn't stop me trying. He's a decent offensive caster, but his real strength is safe and fast ATB charging, so he can use utility ATB abilities like Steel Skin and Lifesaver, as well as being a safe pick for prey materia. As the tank of the party, he soaks up all damage coming at you with enough HP left over to fully charge ATB for a parade to top up afterwards. Chakra is also a really great choice for Barret, again to have a free heal for him while using Lifesaver. For a build weapon, I usually go with Big Bertha to make him as chunky as possible, but you could go EKG Cannon for a DPS build too. Barret also has 2 melee options, and the Wrecking Ball is outrageously powerful and turns Barret into a one-shot machine. It's fun to try out, but his real role is support. That's not to say that Barret doesn't have any range damage options. Maximum Fury is good at dealing a lot of damage to a lot of enemies all at once, and it automatically changes targets, so it's a really good option. The other strong damage dealer is Point Blank, but the thing with Point Blank is that it's very situational. Its best use is to capitalize on staggers, but the wind up on it is so long, and it actually takes so long to detonate, that there's basically no point. You may as well just use something else like Maximum Fury or even an Overcharge. One other thing about Barret's ATB abilities is that they increase in power, but also in their cost the more ATB he actually has. So Maximum Fury will deal more damage and go for longer when he has 2 ATB bars instead of 1, but you spend both. This makes Focus Shot a really good pressure build-up option, but it's very expensive and you kind of want that ATB for support abilities instead. Next up is Tifa. Tifa is my favourite character to play in the entire base game. She is so outrageously strong, super fast, but also super squishy. Her roll covers a pretty crazy distance, and her triangle abilities, Whirling Uppercut, Omni Strike, and Rise and Fall, increase the damage bonus done during staggers. This ability alone makes her the best DPS character, but that's not even close to where it ends. Her normal attack combo is nothing to write home about. It's kinda powerful, but where she really shines is that she can spend ATB to increase the level of her triangle strikes and her other ATB abilities. Star Shower is stupidly strong at dealing with groups. Look at this. Oh my god, they're all dead! She also has Dive Kick, which is a ridiculously powerful single target damage dealing attack. Plus, we also have multiple pressure build-up options. We have Overpower for close range options, and Focus Strike for a closer. Considering her potential to really ramp up stagger damage, her potential to also increase pressure in multiple ways just straight up makes her the strongest character in the main party. Finally, we have Aerith. Aerith is fine. She can be quite powerful, and is much less of a support than Barret is. She's not quite as squishy as Tifa, but her ATB also charges quite fast, so she can use Prey Materia to keep everyone topped off on health. Her dodges are straight trash, and often it's better just to walk out of the way of attacks than actually dodging. She's a good range DPS, but really suffers in hard mode from MP restrictions. Aerith's true potential lies in her offensive casting, but in hard mode it's so detrimental to use any casting, other than revival or emergency healing, that all the potential Aerith has is completely stripped away. That doesn't mean she can't be strong though. Her ATB abilities are a great mix of offense and support. Her normal attacks aren't crazy strong, but her real damage comes from Tempest. Tempest is a charged attack that can be flung at your enemy, where it floats in the air for a little while before dealing all its damage as a couple of high damage ticks. Tempest suffers from the same problem as Barret's Point Blank, where it takes a while for those ticks to go off. Thankfully it is faster, but you still need to take your opportunities sparingly. When an enemy is sitting still, blast them with the Tempest. Her offensive ATB abilities are also really awesome. Ray of Judgment is the coolest ability in the game, and is great for stacking stagger damage build-up. Not to mention ATB Ward is great for charging up the other members of the party, especially Cloud, who doesn't move very much in Punisher mode. The team we stick with for most of the game is Cloud, Tifa, and Barret, and you can really feel the synergy of their playstyles. Cloud can take aggro most of the time, Tifa can build up pressure and capitalizes on stagger amazingly, and Barret keeps everyone alive. Knowing when to switch between characters depending on how combat swings is strategic in itself, but knowing how to combo abilities to either build pressure really quickly or output damage as quickly as possible to capitalize on staggers is so rewarding to finally master. The combination of all of the practice you get in the game is definitely the VR fight with Bahamut and Ifrit, who are constantly aggroed to the active character. You can see the motherfuckers change direction on a dime to target the active character, and since they're so aggressive, building ATB is a real challenge because you're always on the back foot. Speaking of which, for added challenges, we really need to talk about the VR fights. Most are nothing too tough. The only fight outside of the special fights you unlock after doing all the others is Tifa's fight with the Moth unit. That fucking bastard kills me every time. But let's talk about the reason we're all here at the VR Sim. The top secret fight. After dealing with Behemoth and Malboro in the Monsters of Legend challenge, we finally unlock Top Secret, a brutal gauntlet that pits you against every summon in the game, except Ifrit, for a very suspicious reason. Then you come face to face with Bahamut, and the Whisper Bahamut you fight in the story is so much easier by comparison. His normal attacks hurt like hell. He has an aura that hurts like hell. And once you get him to half health, you figure out where Ifrit has been, because he summons the fucker. A fight with 2 summons at once is just insane. Not to mention, if you don't stagger Bahamut out of doing Mega Flare, he'll wipe your party. To have him come after 3 other summon fights, Shiva, Fat Chocobo, and Leviathan, is just horrible. A super rewarding fight once you get it down though. And the Pride and Joy is just a joke compared to that. I'm honestly surprised it comes after Bahamut considering how easy it is. Now, as an addition to the base game, Intergrade gave us the fight with Weiss the Immaculate. And I still haven't beaten him. He has wiped me so many times that it's not even funny. His combos are absolutely devastating. If he catches you with anything, you are immediately scrambling to keep yourself alive, if he doesn't outright kill you. He is constantly doing something. There is no instance where he lets up and will constantly wail on the active character. He doesn't just aggro onto the active character either. Whoever is doing an action is a potential target for him. His opens only come from consistent dodging of his attacks. If you dodge an attack, then Weiss is left open and in a pressured state to stagger him as quickly as possible. Parry Materia seems like a strong way to do this, but there's some weird issue with my controller where if I press my right shoulder button too hard, I accidentally press my right trigger, and that opens the ATB menu. Of course this means that I don't guard, and so I can't parry, which means that I get hit by things. Of course this would be fine if I just didn't press my right bumper so hard, but because it's so stressful in that fight, I can't help it. Dodging him without the parry materia is incredibly difficult to pull off, but capitalizing on pressure to stagger him is vital to interrupt his use of Immaculate and his super move that is guaranteed to wipe everyone on the field. The secrets of Weiss I have yet to master is that with his stab move, if you dodge directly into him, you can somersault over him to put him in a pressured state. And this is the only way to dodge this attack. The tracking is ridiculous, you can't even block it, and if you're hit by it, he follows up with a devastating combo that just destroys you. I'll beat him eventually, but Jesus, he is nasty. His soundtrack is sick though. Let's talk about summoning real quick. During the course of the game, you carry out certain research objectives for Hojo's fuckbot Chadley, and when you complete a certain number of them, you can unlock a VR battle with a summon. You get Ifrit from Jesse, but the other VR fights are Shiva, Fat Chocobo, and Leviathan, and finally, Bahamut. These fights are pretty damn tough, especially when they get their ultimate abilities off. Shiva's Diamond Dust, Fat Chocobo's Quay, I guess, and Leviathan's Tidal Wave are all dangerous, but Bahamut is especially deadly. His Mega Flare, if not stopped in time by staggering him, is capable of one-shotting every single member of your party except for Barrett, and even then, if he's taken a little bit of damage, then it's over. It also hits no matter where you are in the arena, so no dodging it either. Each summon materia gives stat increases when equipped, so it pays to pay attention to which character should have what. Fat Chocobo is a pretty good choice for Barrett, for example, and Ifrit is a good choice for either Tifa or Cloud, depending on whose damage you want to ramp up more. And of course, actually summoning is badass. All the summons are cool as hell and super satisfying to use. Using Mega Flare on a boss, after you've had a taste of how devastating it is, can be so good. Now, speaking about hard mode, there are some absolutely necessary materia that are needed to succeed in hard mode. The first being prayer. I've talked about pray a lot earlier, but having an MP-less heal for the entire party is ridiculously strong.
Mine's not good for anything at all.
Aerith, that is the most powerful materia in the game. The next one is chakra. Poison isn't that common, but the cure is nice, and the MP-less heal you get from using chakra is massive. Only using one ATB also leaves you with another to use for another ability. Finally, the only casting materia that is vital is the revival materia. This one is obvious. You can't use items in hard mode, and so having revival materia is the only way to res your characters when they go down. It's MP heavy, so saving MP for revivals is really incentivized as opposed to actually using spells for offense. Sorry, Aerith.
You jerk.
And I think that's it. That's all I really have to say about the base game, until the speculation bit. Okay, let's do the DLC now. Intermission is fucking awesome. It's a perfect addition to the base game, while also being outrageously frustrating. The story is great though, so let's talk about it. Once again, spoilers if you haven't played it. Intermission picks up after the fight with the Airbuster in the main game. Yuffie arrives in the dump outside the Sector 7 slums and has a grand monologue about what her goal is in Midgar: to infiltrate the Shinra building to steal their ultimate materia. We run through some old factories and run into 3 of these weird, sick grey men with number tattoos. Already that's more than what we saw in the entirety of the base game, so that's weird. I wonder what they're doing here. We save one from one of the hardest hitting doggos I've ever seen, and Yuffie exits Scrap Boulevard as people are watching a TV showing the announcement Scarlet made on the TV in Chapter 8 in the base game. After we watch that for a little while, Jizye shows up.
I'm Jizye.
It's obviously pronounced Jizye. Learn some Chinese, goddamn. Jizye is from the official Avalanche, not the one we know and love. But they're also stationed in Sector 7, weirdly. They're like right down the road. Surely someone from our Avalanche would have noticed, right? They know where we are, at least. We meet a new cast of characters, Nayo, Billy Bob, and Polk, and get some explaining of how Yuffie and Sonon are supposed to get to the Shinra building. But more importantly, Polk gives us the tutorial to Fort Condor, which is, by far, the majority of the DLC's runtime. Fort Condor is fun enough, but good God, there is so much of it, and it is agony. After the tutorial, we find out that materia is the price for defeating the Grand Master, and so we go out and play Fort Condor with some old favorites that play it, which is great. We see this guy, Kyrie the fuck, Roche, Johnny, Jesse, and finally Wedge. Wedge's Fort Condor fight is so ridiculously bullshit. His constant helicopter spam is infuriating to try and deal with. And finally, after Wedge is rightfully laid out on his ass, we find out that he wasn't even the Grand Master, Chadley was. By comparison, Chadley is much easier to deal with than Wedge. By this point, we've unlocked all of Wedge's tanky units, but Chadley's cheap unit rush just breaks straight through the wall. Best way to deal with him that I found? Match cheap shit with even quicker cheap shit. Attack dogs do so much damage and move insanely fast, so you can just keep putting units on his side of the board so quick he can't do anything about it in time. We can also do some other side quests, mainly gathering flyers for a bar called the Happy Turtle, where we hear some of the best music the entire game has to offer. After all this is over, we head back to the office and Sonon shows up. I'm sure his grandma says he's a very handsome young man. We get some nice interaction between Yuffie and Sonon, and then we can finally take on Ramuh for his summon materia without being flattened in a solo fight. He is no joke and an amazing summon for later. After everything is done, we meet up with Nayo to go get our fake IDs to get us on the train. On the way, we run into Barrett, Tifa, and Biggs, who are very confident Cloud is still alive, even though he fell like nearly a kilometer to the ground below. Wait, how is he still alive? Oh well, we're living in anime rules here, so it doesn't really matter. But Biggs reveals that Don Corneo has been looking for Barrett, who is by far the most conspicuous and easy to spot in Avalanche, and should have been found days ago. And Tifa runs off to go investigate. After that's done, we keep following Nayo to go get our IDs, but we get harassed by Don Corneo's men who want to recruit Nayo to be Don Corneo's bride. Yuffie and Sonon kick their asses, and then a messenger comes to tell them Tifa has agreed to be a candidate.
Goods under the hood, junk in the trunk, and down for a bumpy ride.
What junk in the trunk? Tifa has the flattest ass I've ever seen. Anyway, we continue on and get our IDs, but we need Shinra IDs to get into the building, and Jujia has those. We find him later being held up by security officers, and suddenly runs off. And we get some of the best music in the entire game, the Runaround, in all its glory. We give chase through the storage facility, do some puzzles with whatever these things are, pick up the only elemental materia in the DLC, and then catch up with Jizya, who is being interrogated very badly by security. Yuffie reveals the costume she had underneath her Moogle hoodie, and this is the classic costume we've been waiting for. And I think she looks great, other than that her shorts are going to be around her ass in seconds if she doesn't do her fly up. Can't do much fighting when you're doing a penguin waddle with your pants around your ankles. If you do your fly up, please. Sonon runs up and cuts Jizya free somehow? Sonon, you're using a quarterstaff. How the fuck does that even work? And Gigantopede attacks. This is an awesome fight with some great opportunities to showcase Yuffie's combat abilities. It's especially fun with Gigantopede to try and kill it as quick as possible with all the tricks in Yuffie's kit. 3 phases, all with unique attacks and mechanics, some questionable hitboxes, and a great robot design that is hilariously impractical. Gigantopede down, we get our Shinra work IDs from Jizya and head to the station where we're seen off by Avalanche. On the train, Yuffie gets motion sick, which prompts Sonon to give us his tragic backstory. Towards the end of the Wutai Midgar War, his sister Melfi, also trained as a ninja, was killed by a haywire mech. Oh my god. Melfi clearly used the ninjutsu power of her fucking face to stop those missiles. What the fuck did she expect to happen? She wasn't even armed! So I hate to tell you this, because clearly it's still fresh, but your sister was a complete idiot. Yuffie reminds him that she isn't his sister, which is true. Yuffie's at least got a weapon and won't try to face tank missiles for no reason. Before we finally get to the Shinra building, we see the cutscene with President Shinra, Heidegger, and Reeve. And for some reason it has this weird echo.
Yes, there will be no delays.
I mean, this would kind of make sense as a flashback, but it's not. It's happening right as Yuffie and Sonon arrive. It's so weird. We see some journalists asking questions about rumors of the upcoming destruction of Sector 7, while Yuffie and Sonon use the distraction to use their Shinra work IDs and slip into the elevator. Just when we think it's safe. Hi Scarlet, looking good. Scarlet has an evil monologue and does a racist, but she's hot, so it's okay. Scarlet is way too clever for us though, and catches on immediately that Yuffie and Sonon are Wutaian, and locks us into the scenic route. Sonon has another flashback to Melfi, where we can really see her eat rockets and die. Oh no! Really, what the fuck did she expect? But now Sonon has personal stakes to find Scarlet, and boy do we get put through the ringer. First thing we see in Chapter 2 is the combat sim, and this is such a good choice that I wish the base game did this too. The fights, however, are ridiculous. We have some boring fights that aren't hard, but then... You already? Yeah, so Bahamut opens up the Top Secrets trial, which is honestly a good thing. It means the resets are shorter because I've only ever beaten him twice. He is just ridiculous. The damage is just as high as the base game, but now you only have 2 party members, so you can't dish it back as hard while keeping yourself alive. Bahamut is the true test of whether you've mastered Yuffie's combat or not, and after he's down, you still have more to go. Ramu isn't anywhere near as bad really. You fought him before to get his materia, and nothing is different except for the damage. He hits like a fucking freight train, and he's really scary. And finally, there's the Pride and Joy 0.5, which is much more fun than the original. Not much to say about it though, it's just a good fight. Way less of a pushover than the original Pride and Joy was. After the bullshit combat sim, we pop out and Scarlet lines up several combat trials for us. Some taunting from Scarlet later, we do some easy combat trials, Scarlet does some scheming.
Clearly they are ninjas. Teenage ninjas.
And turtles! And we arrive at the Mako manufacturing plant. We push some buttons, climb some crates, have a cute scene where we eat some beans.
You ate it!
After all the power in the materia factory is turned on, we get access to a training area. Sounds fine, right? Oh no. Whack-a-box, no! Once again, we smack through boxes for 80 fucking years while figuring out how to do optimal damage combos. This challenge definitely showed me the value of Windstorm though. We finally find the ultimate materia, which turns out to be a dud, so we chase after Scarlet some more before she puts us through even more trials, culminating in a fight with the Death Wheel, which is really easy. It's super weak to fire, so Yuffie having free fire attacks makes the fight a joke. But right after, we finally catch up to Scarlet, and now we have a real boss fight against the Crimson Mare. The Crimson Mare fight is amazing. Scarlet's Pride and Joy can handily beat you up and down the arena, but it has a few big weaknesses. The first being that Scarlet apparently forgot to protect the pilot. Like, she's totally exposed up there, and since Yuffie can essentially fly, it's no issue to get up there and wail on her for free damage. The sword and board phases are disgusting though. Her combos will rip your health to shreds in seconds, and they last so long that if you aren't spamming Preamble form, you may as well reset the fight. The Mako Cannon phase is also insanely powerful, but her fusillade attacks won't track you if you Preamble form out of the way, so if you keep moving, you won't get hit by it. Eventually the Crimson Mare goes down and Scarlet is captured. Before she is though, she manages to send a distress signal by pressing a button hidden on her thigh. In assumably another part of the Shinra building, we see this guy with underwear on his head. This guy is Nero, and we don't know much about him yet. He's spooky though. Nero steps out of his glass thing and starts talking with Weiss, who, from what I've read, is essentially Hojo's VTuber avatar. These guys originally appeared in Dirge of Cerberus, which I haven't played. but they seem very over the top, even for Final Fantasy VII. Nero says some spooky shit and disappears to come get us. Can't wait. Back with Yuffie and Sonon, they interrogate Scarlet about the ultimate materia, and Scarlet reveals it's not complete since Shinra's plot to drop the Sector 7 plate on the slums has taken priority. Some commotion happens outside, so Sonon goes to check it out. Scarlet is racist some more, and then Sonon gets attacked by Deep Ground soldiers. Deep Ground is not somewhere that I'd heard of before, but that's because it's also a Dirge of Cerberus thing. I really should play that one day. The Deep Ground soldiers are kinda like what we've seen the normal capital letters soldiers do, but they can also teleport, which gets annoying. They aren't bad to fight, just slow because they're invincible while they teleport. After putting them down, more show up and end up chucking a grenade at Yuffie and blasting her into another combat sim. Sonon runs to protect her and they get locked inside. Scarlet reappears, this time with Nero, who eats the Deep Ground soldiers while waiting for Yuffie and Sonon to escape. The sim activates, and after some trash fights we get a boss that is, imaginatively, called the Diabolic Creation. It's sort of a DPS check, where you have to repeatedly kill the creation so that you can expose the projector that keeps respawning it. If you're quick, you can 2-cycle it. If not, the fight is much longer. The creation itself is quite nasty, using an ability similar to Bad Breath that poisons, silences, and sleeps all at once. But it doesn't use it often, and it's squishy enough to kill it before it uses it. After we break out of the sim, the DLC is already almost over. We end up in a lab where Nero is waiting for us. This dollar store BDSM guy seems to eat suffering? Something like that. He kills a bunch of Deep Ground soldiers again so that Yuffie and Sonon can see what an edgy badass he is, and then they fight. And he is nasty. Nero has a lot of attacks that, in addition to the actual attack's damage, constantly drain health over time. Not only that, but the edges of the arena also drain health, which force you into the fight. Nero doesn't care about this though, and some of his attacks will fling him to the edges of the arena where you can still hit him, you just can't stay there the whole time. Nero's attacks are quite varied. He's got a plethora of melee hits with his metal wing thingies. He's got guns that he occasionally uses, and a lot of magic. Not much changes between phases, only that he adds another, nastier grab to his arsenal, and the health drain gets worse. After a hard fight, he finally dies and explodes? Alright. Yuffie and Sonon try to make a break for it, but Sonon gets a sixth sense and body blocks a sword coming straight at Yuffie. So yeah, Nero isn't dead, even though he exploded. Sure. He shows up, all purple and smoky, and stabs Sonon again. Sonon opens the elevator, has the generic, "You gotta keep going," death speech, and Yuffie just fucking stands there. Help him, you idiot! But we gotta have a dramatic death, so As he dies, Sonon has a vision of his dead idiot sister, and oh no, he can't eat the beans. And so he died as he lived. Face down, ass up. And then Nero eats him. And that's pretty much it. Yuffie flees the Shinra building and sees the destruction of Sector 7, but this time we see it from the plate, and it looks like literal hell. Everything bursts into flames and Yuffie rightfully screams in horror and grief. We cut away, and Yuffie is riding a chocobo away from Midgar as her story ends. We also get to see Cloud and the gang hitchhiking their way to Calm. We get some cute interactions. Barrett and Cloud complain about riding in the back of a truck with chocobos, and after getting off, they walk off into part 2. But oh no, we're not done yet. We get another cutscene of Aerith's church with someone out the front. Wait a minute. Zack? He's rehearsing his lines to himself, clearly trying to think of a way to say hi to Aerith. He enters, is about to say his chosen line, but notices that everyone in the church is clearly in mourning. Could be the survivors of Sector 7 or something else. At this stage, we don't know. All we can tell from this is that Aerith isn't here. And that's the story of Intergrade. As for the story of the base game, it doesn't add too much, but it has so many plot implications, I don't know where to begin. Okay, I do. But first I gotta talk about the combat. We only have one character and a half to talk about, so it'll be quick. Combat in Intergrade revolves entirely around Yuffie. You start the DLC as just Yuffie, and you can never take control of Sonon the entire playthrough. As such, the combat works entirely differently, and Yuffie has to fill multiple roles at once. She's an extremely effective caster and melee combatant, but is also squishy as hell. She has a lot of ATB skills up her sleeve, my personal favourite of which are Windstorm and Banishment. With my hard mode playthrough though, I was forced to learn how to use Preamble form, and I love it as well. Yuffie's base attacks have two forms, a magical and a melee attack. When she has her shuriken in her hand, she uses it like a sword and fights in melee. However, she can also throw her shuriken, which will hover around an enemy dealing a little damage, but leaving her hands free to use magical attacks called ninjutsu. Yuffie can also spend an ATB bar to change the element of her ninjutsu, so if your enemy has a distinct elemental weakness, you can exploit it without spending MP. This is an absolute godsend, and absolutely how I think Aerith should have worked. An innate casting ability makes Yuffie insanely powerful, but even better is that when you retrieve her shuriken, she will fly towards that enemy. If the enemy is small, you can knock it into the air. With good timing, you can constantly throw and retrieve the shuriken to keep both Yuffie and the enemy in the air for free, and do incredibly quick damage, high above most enemies in the game. Yuffie also has some unlockable skills on her weapons called Precision Defense, and, like the name suggests, it's essentially a parry. Block at the last possible moment and you can proc some abilities, like an ATB boost, or even a regen for free. Yuffie has an ATB skill associated with each of her thrown and held shuriken states, being Windstorm and Art of War respectively. When using Windstorm while holding the shuriken, it does minimal damage and sucks in opponents. But when used while the shuriken is thrown, it causes a massive explosion that deals insane damage. Likewise with Art of War, piddly damage when the shuriken is not being held, but an incredible AoE combo with big damage when it is. Preamble form gives Yuffie iframes for a free dodge, but you need more than one bar of ATB, and Banishment increases in strength the more you use other ATB skills, not including Preamble form. It also changes based on the element of ninjutsu you are currently using, which is neat. Sonon has comparatively little to do, but this makes sense since you can't directly control him. His ATB charges slowly, but his role is to take heat off Yuffie by using abilities like Insight to draw enemy aggro. He should be as tanky as possible to weather the shitstorm constantly being unloaded on him, and use abilities like Fighting Spirit on bosses to be more aggressive and focus a particular enemy. Lastly, we have synergy attacks between Yuffie and Sonon. By hitting L2 while both Yuffie and Sonon have a bar of ATB, they enter a synergized state, and Yuffie gains synergized versions of Art of War and Windstorm. Synergized Art of War deals massive damage, while synergized Windstorm deals comparatively little but massively increases stagger damage. They also have a synergy limit break when both of their limits are active, which is pretty cool. However, Yuffie and Sonon don't passively regain ATB in synergized state, so you need to turn it on and off as required instead of just leaving it on. I honestly think Yuffie's combat is perfect. I'm kinda glad we don't get to play as Sonon, as it would have distracted from the absolute mayhem Yuffie can cause. I can't wait for her to be part of the main team in part 2. And now, the moment I have been leading up to the entire video. The review is over, except for the sum up after this next bit. It's time to put our tinfoil hats on and speculate. So this is where we get into the real nitty gritty of dissecting the story to try and guess what is even happening. All of my theories stem around one major event that I pointed out before, killing the Whisper Harbinger. But before getting into that, let's talk about Cloud. Remember Cloud? He's kind of the main character, and he's very weird in this game compared to the original. OG Cloud is edgy, but very quickly just turns into a normal guy. This Cloud is completely different, and there is a big reason why. Remember when Cloud first runs into the illusion of Sephiroth during the escape from Reactor 1? Some really important dialogue happens here. First, Cloud tells Sephiroth that him being there is impossible, because
I killed you with my own...
Oh, you need not remind me.
But in the original story, Cloud has met Sephiroth in Crisis Core, but certainly hasn't killed him. And we don't even see Sephiroth in the OG until the attack on the Shinra building. So how did Cloud kill Sephiroth if he didn't? So here's where we go full conspiracy theory. My current theory is that destroying the Whisper Harbinger threw everything out of whack. Red 13 explains that Whispers are arbiters of fate, and the Whisper Harbinger is the biggest and baddest of them. My theory is that the Whisper Harbinger holds fate in check, and now that it's dead, everything is wrong. I'm not just talking about getting rid of predetermined destiny, I'm also talking different timelines here, and even transporting between them. All this is to say that Cloud isn't the Cloud from this timeline. He's actually a future Cloud that has killed Sephiroth already. After the Harbinger was destroyed, Cloud was thrown back in time and has taken the place of this timeline's Cloud. But how? Cloud in this timeline should still be around, so what gives? So, I have a couple of theories knocking about in my head about this. One being that he's kind of fused with the Cloud of this timeline, like there can be only one of a person in a universe or something. This would explain the weird unconscious thing after the Airbuster fight, where it seems like Cloud's psyche is talking to an older, wiser Cloud. But I think it's far more likely that Sephiroth killed Cloud in this timeline. He tells Cloud in Aerith's meet cute scene that
you are too weak to save anyone. Not even yourself.
So either Cloud chased Sephiroth back in time, or he was thrown back in time and tried to stop Sephiroth from killing the Cloud in this timeline. But he failed. So he took the place of the original Cloud, and a lot like how he represses memory of Zack to cope at the end of Crisis Core, I think we see a lot of repressed memories in his headache / flashback thingies. Speaking of Zack, I deliberately left him out when we were talking about the base game story because I really need to talk about it here. After we kill Whisper Harbinger, we see Zack come up to his last stand against Shinra at the end of Crisis Core. Cloud is weakened or unconscious, and Zack starts the fight. After we beat Sephiroth, we see that Zack survives. He carries Cloud off towards Midgar, and we get a shot that shows that it's possible Aerith saw this happen. Here's where my theory gets really crazy. Killing the Whisper Harbinger also explains how Zack survives the fight he was supposed to die in. With fate no longer bound, there is now a timeline where Zack survives the fight. When he turns up at the Sector 5 church after Intergrade, it's implied he turns up after the collapse of Sector 7. But he makes no mention of it at all, doesn't seem upset by it, and even though there's a lot of crying people that could be refugees from Sector 7, something else happens that could mean this is something different.
Aerith?
So Aerith could be dead here. We know she dies in the original, but after the Whisper Harbinger's death, everything is out the window now. The main party are all headed to Calm, so that's still consistent, but we really don't know if she's gonna die in the remake. Like, the entire future is up in the air now, and nothing from the original is guaranteed. If she does die, then Zack could join the party almost as a replacement. But I'm betting he's joining the party regardless. See, I think that when the Harbinger was destroyed, it sent everything out of whack. Not just the future, but also the past. Now, instead of one timeline, where everything is neat and governed by the Whispers, there's infinitely many, and they tangle and cross without the people in them realizing a lot of the time. So Zack survives his fight, that's why we see him pass Cloud and Aerith here, still in his own timeline, recovers, and goes to see Aerith. This is when he pops into our timeline, right after the Sector 7 plate collapse. So of course, He wasn't in our timeline to see it happen. He probably just blips into existence right before we see him here. I'm betting there's a serious time jump here too. I've already talked about how Cloud is a time traveler to some degree, so it makes total sense in my mind that Zack is also time traveling, however unintentionally. It's going to be hilarious when he runs into the team, and he's definitely going to. What the hell are Cloud and Aerith going to say other than, "You're supposed to be dead"? Plus, we're going to get Vincent Valentine, and Yuffie of course, so we're probably going to have quite a full roster. So let's go through what I think the broad strokes of the story are going to be going forward. And I'll probably be wrong, but if I'm right, then I hope this video is proof that I actually am a genius, and Square Enix will hire me to write for them. So we've seen the guys with the numbers on them, and if you know the original, then you know that these guys are the Sephiroth clones. Essentially, these are dudes who have been implanted with Jenova cells, and are kinda controlled by her as a result. They were made by Hojo to test the theory that the clones will always be drawn back to Jenova. This is why they keep muttering something about a reunion. They want to reunite with Jenova. But there's something weird here. If my theory about branching timelines holds water, there's more to the Sephiroth clones than the original. Cloud gets quick visions of a Sephiroth clone that is Sephiroth. Like, that's very clearly who that is. Not all Sephiroth clones look like him, but I have a sneaking suspicion that some Sephiroth clones are actually alternate timelines versions of Sephiroth, at varying stages of post-ass-kickery in the original. I think that, by luring Cloud and the gang into killing the Whisper Harbinger, they're attempting to escape the fate they had where they lose. Also, they're going to fuse together in some way to super, ultra, mega safer Sephiroth at the end, because we have to have safer Sephiroth. Maybe the party loses and they have to travel back in time using the timeline fuckery somehow. There's a lot of different ways that they could take the story, but this is what has happened and why. I can't wait for part 2 to come out and tell me I'm completely wrong. Alright, that's the speculation done. Let's wrap this up. After it came out in 2020, FF7 quickly became one of my favourite games ever. Its story is easy to get invested in, the characters are likeable, and I personally love the deviations from the original story. If it was just a by-the-numbers remake, I would not be anywhere near as interested in the game as I am. Theory crafting where the story is going to go next is so much fun. The combat is some of the best I've seen in a video game, particularly Yuffie's, and the boss design ranges from, it was okay, to some of the best in all the games I've played. The soundtrack is perfect, the visuals are excellent, the PC port is rough as hell, and I have collectively sunk hundreds of hours into the game on both PS4 and PC because it is so great to just pick up and play. If you watched this entire video up to now, then I think you know how I feel about this game. It's not perfect, but it is damn close, and if you haven't played it yet, even in its rough state on PC, it is absolutely worth playing. Now, I hate doing this kind of thing, but this video took a crazy long time to write and make, so if you made it this far, please like the video and subscribe for more, as well as check out my Twitch channel where I play a whole bunch of different things. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, Greatsword Gang forever! Also, Nomura, where is part 2? I have been waiting for so long. Where is it? I want it! Ah! Holy shit!